Hello, everyone, and welcome to the ArsenalVision Post-Match Podcast. Normally, at this point, Elliot or whoever is hosting would have got things going with a joke or a witty remark, but it feels quite redundant today because just hours before recording, we learned that Liverpool and Portugal striker Diogo Jota has died in a car crash, aged just 28, alongside his brother Andre Silva, who was only 26. It's difficult to find the right words for a moment like this. And let's be honest, ours mean very little to their family, their friends and teammates who are dealing with such a tragic and sudden loss. But we'll say them anyway, because our thoughts go out to all of his loved ones. And I'm sure the impact Diogo especially made on millions of people ensures he leaves a positive and happy legacy behind. He was a brilliant player, a clinical finisher. We know that very well as Arsenal fans, and by all accounts, a very humble and exemplary professional. Death will always put things into perspective in a way that nothing else can. And it's another reminder of how quickly life can change. So be kind, go and give your loved ones a big hug, and hopefully his memory will be immortalized at Liverpool and in the footballing world beyond that. It's a very sad morning, and hopefully we can move forward with respect. And we did think about cancelling the show, but we wanted to kind of move on and just give a word to him and his brother, who unfortunately did pass away this morning. So moving on to today's episode, my name is Phil Costa, and I'll be in the hosting chair with Elliot unable to fulfill his usual duties. We've actually got a lot to cover today because things have gone transfer crazy. That's right, Mr. Berta has kicked into gear. He's got the sofrito simmering away in the background. We're basically signing all the players. I've heard names like Eze, Madueke, Norgaard, Mosquera, Gyokeres and Sesko are bubbling away in the background. There's been links to Monaco forward Magnus Akliush, Olympiakos midfielder Christos Moussakitis, and plenty more, which is why I'm delighted to welcome Clive Palmer back to the show. Hello, Clive.
Hello. Back from holiday, and I was really looking forward to today, and I'm still looking forward to it, but it's really sad news. It sort of really makes you think about life and really think about what's really important. And when I was on holiday, I was able to have a look at the Arsenal world from a distance and see the back and forth and people getting upset and anxious over bits of news that are true, not true. We don't know if they're true. And there's a lot of perspective being thrown around today, and it does make you thinking. I have many sayings, as you know, Phil, and one of mine is just football, mate. And sometimes that's really relevant. It's just football, and there's far more important things in life. And just as an aside, I happened to meet Jota last year on my last holiday, back in the same place. And my memory of him was he was with his family, his whole family. And when I mean classic Spanish family, lots of people sitting together having dinner. And it really struck me what a family man he was. And just that was it. Hello, nod, pass. I support Arsenal, blah, 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 that type of thing. And it's very sad. And when to lose a child is extremely sad anyway. But the amount of support that a family would have to give to any son or daughter to reach the level he's reached in football, and to have two sons pass, I dread to think what his family are going through. And just wishing them all the strength really going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It does remind us how cruel life can be sometimes. This is a Premier League winner, someone who just won the Nations League as well recently. He got married to his partner less than 2 weeks ago. He leaves 3 young children behind as well. So hopefully that their family are together, getting all the support they need. A really difficult time for everyone in their circle, and also for football as well, because like I said, he did impact and would have impacted millions of people as well. So just very sad, and I hope they're receiving all the support they need, and for Liverpool as well, it's a really terrible time. So it is just me and you today. So I've got the honours of supplying your transfer fix after you missed all the bombers last week.
Mate, I didn't miss
you were
anything.
Away, of course.
I have a phone.
I know you didn't, mate. I know you didn't. Did you have a good trip otherwise? All good? Got your tan up?
Yeah,
well rested and relaxed?
Best holiday ever. Fantastic. And really enjoy it. And I went into it in better health and better fitness, and so I was able to really enjoy it. I got a bit sick on holiday last year, but this time really good. In a good place, and really looking forward to the season, really, and getting your head back into the stuff that really matters. And the stuff that really matters to me is when you start seeing the players run about. That's the real stuff that matters. And So I'm looking forward to that. Season ticket done, ready to go.
Definitely. You're going to have to blow some of the cobwebs off the microphone, do your stretches in your chair. I have to say, you posted a few snaps on Instagram and there were some strong shirts going on. So you need to be walking up to Clairefontaine.
Shopping spree if I went away. Well, actually, just finally listen to my wife. She gives me better advice than my crazy ideas. And so yeah, all good. Good fun.
That's the easiest way. So obviously, let's start with Christian Norgaard, because it looks like Mikel got bored with signing all the Gabriels, so now we're moving on to the Christians. And even though this news has been bubbling away for a few days now, I'll give you a chance to get your word in, because I don't think you have yet. This is a move that developed pretty quickly over the last week and was undoubtedly linked to Thomas Partey leaving the club, even though at the time of recording it still hasn't officially been announced yet. But in terms of Norgaard, he's an experienced player, aggressive, tough tackling in the middle of the pitch, and has been a key player for Brentford, who have, in my opinion, done amazingly well to kind of settle in the Premier League after their promotion 4 years ago. I think they've got a great group behind the scenes at boardroom level. They recruit well. Their manager was excellent. So he looks like he's coming in to kind of bolster the midfield. He's obviously their captain as well. First of all, just give me your thoughts on Thomas Partey leaving after all the noises and reports were initially pointing towards him staying.
Yeah, I think with Thomas Partey, I think you often heard me talk about the word evolution, and sometimes you just need to do something else, and we got a situation of a 32-year-old taking home a couple $100,000 a week. He accepts a reduced role in the squad, or he quite in his rights to say, no, I'm not going to accept that. I need to go look after my family and go and get a free transfer elsewhere. And that's his prerogative. I've seen some feedback towards him. I think, well, you know what? Any young player, and we'll talk about one later, that wants to secure themselves going forward, they're going to push for the best deal. And it's up to the club to accept it or not. And it seems as though the club has said it's time for a change. I think Thomas Partey has had 5 years in the club. He's had 2 or 3 years. He's definitely had a couple of years where he had a very poor injury record. And so some people have been upset by that and say, well, maybe it's better value for him to move on. I tend to try to look at just the football, which is probably the best way to go about analysing Thomas Partey. And on football-wise, he shows what that position can do and how he's matured that position to the point where it became very pivotal. And when we missed him in key games, it really hurt. It hurt and it stayed in our memories, even up to the point of the first leg against PSG recently. People who then critiquing him forgot what they were saying when he got booked and how important he would have been for that first leg when we really had our bench was really told us where we were. So I think it's important to stay consistent. He's been there 5 years, so you want to find 5 years worth of bad stuff he's done, you can find it really easy. You can also find 5 years of really, really good stuff. I'm an Arsenal fan, and that's what he's no longer here. So that's it. But I do think some of the analysis is a little bit average, shall I say, but that's just my opinion. It's where everyone's allowed to be different about his play style. But I also think there's room for improvement. And we're hoping that Zubimendi and Norgaard provide that improvement. And I think as a two players, and we've yet to see them in the shorts yet, on paper, you can see a level of defensive ability with Norgaard. Definitely gets around the pitch. Definitely a really good character. That's been validated by everyone at Brentford who thinks the world of him. He's one of those sneaky, underrated players that other clubs hope you don't find. But now with data, you can't miss them, and you can tap them on the shoulder. I think it's very interesting how he came to Arsenal when Spurs were sniffing the prices a lot higher. So I do think there was maybe some agreements there, Phil, regarding signing the contract this year so they could get some money back. And he lands where he wanted to land. So who knows how football clubs work? We can only sort of speculate, can't we? But I don't mind it at all. I don't mind it at all. He fits what we do. And what we do really well is we respect the contest of the game. And whatever we want to do, there is an individual contest within football that underpins your ability to impose your tactics on the opposition. And he's another one that does that, and I think it's very important to remember that. And So I like the signing. I like what it says about us, and I liked how we reacted very, very quickly once the decision was made. And so yeah, I'm enjoying what I'm seeing so far.
Yeah, definitely. It does feel like the last 2 weeks have been very sort of focused on getting these players in to renew, regenerate the squad. I personally think it was time to move away from Thomas Partey. I think we lose an obvious level of quality in our midfield as well, but in terms of his injury history, there were some mistakes creeping into his game towards the end of last season as well that I didn't overly like. And I think if you're not willing to accept either a reduced salary or a reduced role in the squad, as you mentioned, I wouldn't have felt good about him getting an increase or maintaining his normal salary, to be honest. And I think there was an opportunity there to rebuild our midfield. Just quickly on Jorginho and Partey both leaving, that's a lot of experience, a lot of leadership and know-how to lose in a key area of the pitch. I mean, obviously Norgaard is coming into the club as Brentford captain. He's in a similar age bracket to those two. A lot of the debate around this signing has been, would you have gone younger in terms of a Lucien Agume profile, for example, who is a 23, 24-year-old player who's been around a little bit, someone who can come in and understudy Zubimendi, who maybe isn't entirely there, but can develop into someone we hopefully like and can use more regularly in the future? Or do you think this experienced way, Premier League ready, win now mentality was the right way to go?
I do think it's the right way to go. You can look far back as Mikel Merino. I know he started the season a little bit unfit, shall we say, after the injury and came back from Spain in the summer quite late. But look how long it took him to get to the levels. And he's 28. And he's won the Euros. And he's been around the block. He's played in the Premier League. And it took us time. It's only when he got to centre forward that he started to get fitter, more shuttles up there, pressing, that we started to see the player. And some people are still to be convinced of him playing in midfield. That's after one season. So Zubimendi, although to my eye, and every single YouTube and Y Scout clip I have seen, I think I can see this player and I love what he could offer. But I have not seen him chase after the ball in a Premier League game and get there first. I haven't seen him do it. So it's to be confirmed. I think he'll be fine. I think around better players in our compact shape, I think he'll be fine. But I need to see it. None of us have seen him play a 90-minute game for Arsenal. So how do you create an insurance policy? You have someone who can do the last 20 minutes of that game for you, no problem, and has played in the Premier League and has played against all the oppositions we're going to play against home and away, and is not new to the ground, to the crowd, to the atmosphere, to the intensity, to the emotion. Somebody who knows his way around, has been a captain and goes to the halfway line and shakes the referee's hand. I think it's a really smart move to make sure you allow people to settle while not blocking anything in behind, and allowing you to renew maybe in a couple of years' time. I do feel that position is an old man's position, so Zubimendi is a young man at 26, and that position, sometimes 30, 32, 33 is the time when you're at your absolute best, and so, yeah, I think it's a really clever move, really, to create different units. You can see loads of different combinations that could be played together. And I saw a headline last night, Phil, that Real Madrid are playing their 67th game of the season. 67 games. They could maybe get to 70. I mean, this is not the same sport, mate. With the exposure, the intensity, the globality around it. They've got 1 billion fans looking at them. I mean, 67 games of that pressure. We need all the depth we can get, and so, yeah, I do like the move.
That's a lot of hamstrings on the edge, I would say, for Real Madrid. And also, I think a lot of people have taken issue with Norgaard being kind of the next one in line after Zubimendi. But in my mind, it's not like that, because I think we've got Declan Rice as well, who's equally capable of dropping into that sixth role or sixth position. I know that the future looks probably a little bit different for him in that number 8 position, where he can contribute at either end of the pitch. We saw him do it really well last year. But I think in terms of Zubimendi, Rice and Norgaard, I think that's a perfectly capable and Premier League ready sort of midfield 3 option to come in and play 6. Obviously, we will need some more guile and creativity in forward areas, but I'm not overly worried about that. I think Jorginho was an obvious departure. His legs were starting to leave him. So overall, I'm happy with the deal. I think we've acted quickly. I think the deal suits us financially, and we're getting a good player who can bring some things on and off the pitch. So that's kind of where I sit on the deal, and whether or not he's a success, we'll have to wait and see. But from where I see it on paper and what I've seen of him in the Premier League, I'm not overly worried about him struggling to adapt, even though I know eventually the level will be a little bit higher.
Yeah.
Speaking of deals moving quickly, we've got another player to talk about, and that's Christian Mosquera, because earlier this summer, it looked like he would be joining RB Leipzig. Then the reporting in Spain was about him renewing his contract with Valencia. But after news around that went quiet, it looks like Arsenal have stolen in, convinced the player, and now it's all about agreeing a fee with Valencia, who, let's be honest, risk losing a prized asset for free next summer. So I think the move for them will try and be was to try and get the best possible deal. Obviously, he is a young player, so maybe they could point to that and say this is someone with big potential. We can ask for a bit more than usual. But either way, it's quite clear the club were after some defensive cover after pushing hard for Dean Howson. He eventually moved to Real Madrid, but this is a young centre-back like Howson, who can play both sides. He can deputise for Gabriel and Saliba, while also providing depth and competition. He's good on the ball. He can play on both feet. I mean, I don't know if Mosquera is exactly at his level yet, but he's also costing about 2/3 of the 50 million release clause. So I think you can see how that deal could potentially suit Arsenal. An important question: how quickly were you onto YouTube, sitting by the pool, watching all of his 2024-25 highlights with a strawberry daiquiri in hand?
Strawberry daiquiri, good choice. I had frozen strawberry daiquiris. They're the ones I was going for. So, and to be honest, when we did the live show, I sort of spoke about getting a right-footed defender in, because I think we had a gap. And I was thinking Mosquera, and I sort of spoke to you. He said to me, Clive, I think he's going to go to RB. And like, oh, no. And then we looked at Ribeiro, and I thought, oh, can he play both sides? You know, and even though he was a left-in, he looked very much Gabriel-like. I thought, oh, he's not quite right, but we need a righty defender. Then Mark Gay came out. I thought, I can see it now. Even though he plays on the left, can we nick him? But then that sort of, he looks Liverpool bound to me. And so when Mosquera came back up again, that was my original hope. And had a little chance to see him in the under-21s, because I was watching that when I was away. And he looks sharp. He looks strong. At that level, he dominates, much like Quanta does, you know, physically dominant, does really, really well. And I thought, okay, I'm really pleased with this. Then the price came out. I thought that perfect sense. Because one of the hardest jobs that Berta has to do is find a deputy for Saliba and Saka. Because those two players are not bad. And if you can get someone who wants to do that job and hopefully be a bit more flexible, particularly at right back, we started talking about Thomas Partey, and he spent a number of times at right back because we had injuries there. We got two players at right back at the moment, fresh off operations. Right, so if you can play right back as well and take minutes off them, and also play right centre back and left centre back, you become very valuable for under 20 million quid. Very valuable. And we had a player that used to do that for us, but he's injured as well in Tomiyasu. So that's what we've really done, isn't it? We've really gone there to really replace him at a similar number. You know, so it makes a lot of sense. We've got a lot of lefty defenders. Some teams don't have any. We've got loads, and there's rumors of others coming in, right? So, so we shall see. So I really like this one. He fits the mold for me. Aggressive, sharp, 6'2", 6'3", quick, half decent on the ball, with loads of improvement ahead. In a structure where you know your 3 passes that you have, receive the ball, you got 3 passes. There they are. This is what we do. This is how we travel. We build up in 4 lines. We build up in groups of 3. We defend in 3 lines, and we defend tight. Very simple principles, easy to transmit to a player. Have you got the core ability to be aggressive, follow people into midfield, which he absolutely has? And can you run over your shoulder and win races? He absolutely has. Lots of raw material for a coach to work with. So I liked it. Phil. The only thing I need to do was not see the clips, but see a full game, which I was managed to see in the under-21s. I thought, yeah, mate, you're good. So put that one there, get him to Colney and sort him out. So I hope that one gets done.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting one because, like you said, the noises were different earlier this summer. There was that strong link with RB Leipzig. I think Valencia were quite confident to renew his deal, actually, based on a couple of people that I've spoken to who are close to the club. But it does seem like we've been whispering in his ear. I think it's always a difficult proposition for a young player to turn down a club like Arsenal, even in a more rotation capacity. But ultimately, that's exactly what we need. Someone young, someone with potential who can come in as a rotation option, take away some of the burden from a Gabriel, from a Saliba in a Carabao Cup game, a lower league sort of FA Cup game, but also long term, hopefully develop into someone who can play a more consistent role in the future. I think the potential is obvious. He's got some really exciting physical attributes to look at that could potentially suit Premier League football. I think his distribution isn't going to change our world or reinvent the wheel, but he's very capable on either side. He likes to keep things simple. I do worry about him in the air slightly. I looked at his data and he's only in the 6% in terms of or the 6th percentile in terms of aerial duels won. But I think Saliba had a very similar issue aerially in terms of his technique, his bravery, where he was willing to judge the ball, to meet the ball. So hopefully over time we can get that sort of drilled into him as well. But this is a deal that makes sense. If we can get him for £15 million on a long contract, there's big potential for a resale value there if he doesn't quite work out at the club, a la Jakub Kiwior. So that's why links to Jurol Hato didn't really make sense to me, because unless a Kiwior was leaving for example, because we don't need any more lefties. We need someone who can come in and deputise on the right side, maybe even play at right back on occasion, where we've had to nurse Ben White and Yuri and Timber over the last couple of seasons. So this ticks all the boxes for me, and I think if we can get in and get this done at a cut price deal, it's a very good signing for Arsenal. There were even links to Atletico Madrid actually over the past 18 months, which maybe shows that Berta could have been thinking about this for Atletico. Maybe there were contacts there to renew already, just in a different scenario. So that's his job ultimately, and if he gets it done, I'm more than happy with it. So that they're the kind of two deals that look like they're going to happen at the moment. Norgaard as well. It seems mostly done. I think the Brentford is it CEO or director Phil Giles was on the BBC the other day saying that it's looking more likely to be done than not. I think Mosquera has shown he's willing to push this move slightly to Arsenal. He doesn't want to renew with Valencia, and they can't afford to lose him for free. So I'd be quite confident in those two happening. So otherwise, they're the two main ones. So those are the boring players out of the way. Let's move on to some more exciting stuff, and that's the attackers, because it's now being widely reported that Arsenal want to sign a centre forward, a winger, and another creative player to supplement the attack, which is like music to my ears. I've long felt that we needed to power up in forward areas, and after years of underinvestment under Arteta, although that was partly due to Saka and Martinelli already being at the club when he took over, it seems we're finally being aggressive and addressing some gaps in the squad that have left us short in recent seasons, let's say. Clive, you've been on the three forwards train for a little while now. But did you expect the club to be pursuing things so aggressively? Obviously, we might not be able to get everyone in or end up doing everything that we want to do, but it's encouraging nonetheless.
Yeah, I think this summer's been, from looking from afar, the iPad hot, looking, thinking, okay, what are we doing? How are we working? I do think I've tried to keep my brain thinking, okay, how are we operating now? Because everyone is rushing to conclusion that we're doing this, Berta's working this way, he's working that way. I think he's just doing the necessary work. So he's shown he can move very, very quickly. Some of those boring signings were just done. One day we heard about Mosquera, the next day it's just more or less done. Right? So no other players around, just done. Norgaard, done. And then there's been chat from maybe March this year, done. Very, very quickly. Kepa, I maybe had half a guess on that one, but I just guessed. It was an intelligent guess. Done. Out of nowhere. But then you go to the striker situation, the winger situation, where there's more money involved, where there's more expense involved. And some people say, well, just do it. We'll just do it. Well, the season tickets went up by a couple percent, say I'm half guessing there, and they might make an extra £5 million from that to help them with their cost base. Well, if you're throwing away £5 million in a poor negotiation, what's the point of putting season tickets up? This money does matter. The negotiation is important, holding on to your costs is important, to respect the people who are spending money on your merchandise and going into grounds around the world and absorbing everything you throw at them. You have to respect their commitment. And so I do think a strong negotiation is really, really important. And so, yeah, for the forward situation, I think is more complex because we started to talk about renewal in midfield and understanding that we maybe need to try something else there, potentially, particularly with the ages of two players that have gone. They're not going to get better. We can debate what they've done in the past, but not going to get better, right? So now we've made that slightly younger, and we got some insurance policies there. But in attack, we've got to ask ourselves some hard questions. Have we seen some of the best moves of some of those players in attack? My line is, have we seen all the dance moves of a Martinelli, for example? Have we seen them all? Are we going to see improvements? These are the questions you have to ask yourself. You say, what is the ceiling of our left-hand side versus our right-hand side? Has the left-hand side got a ceiling despite all the tactical excuses that we make for why it's not operationally working as well? Right? So what you get with Mendy potentially is a bit more diversity in attack. When you get that diversity, what have you got on the end of that pass? And these are the questions you have to really, really ask. If you really want to renew and get better, hard questions, really hard questions. And now it really goes down to my thought process around the type of centre forward we'd like to add, because we need to add one because one's got an ACL and one is just coming back from another operation. So we need to add a centre forward. And I think we need to add an attacking midfielder and a winger. And if we lose players, a couple of players, we maybe need to add 4 players. And that is renewal. That is a change. Another one of my lines, Phil, you're as good as your forwards. They define you. They define how a team feels about you, right? When you play your game, you're trying to get the ball into forward areas. How do they affect the other team, the opposition? How much fear do they throw at them? How much do they attack the back line? And I think we've got room for improvement. So I read something today and it came out from Orstein talking about Marseille's potential moving on. And it's a painful one for us because we watched him grow up, boy and man, and coming for 6 million quid. 6 million quid, Phil, was a bit of money there, mate. Profit. If we were to sell, that's a player that's worth 50, 60 now. So if you're in the mahogany rooms at Arsenal, you're thinking about this, aren't you? You're thinking about this. You're thinking about the opportunity to really go for it in these areas. And what do I need to do to facilitate that? And so I do think it's a live option. I don't like it because I like all our players. I've got to know them and like them. I don't want to see anyone leave. Well, I'm all to stay. I want new players as well. That's what I really want. And that's the truth, isn't it? There's some people you don't like maybe, but there's not many. And so Martinelli's done a lot for us since he's been here. But maybe you just have to make the call and say, yeah, we need to do something there to change us. And I think maybe that's one we should think about.
You kind of went into it there, but why is it important for Arsenal to refresh and evolve their attacking options this summer? Because last season, obviously, you can point to injuries as an obvious factor towards our struggles, but was there also a sense of some teams figuring us out in terms of their deep blocks, their mid blocks? They were pushing us into areas we didn't really want to be or want the ball. They were doubling and tripling up on Saka and leaving our left-hand side. Just bringing someone else in could change the whole dynamic of the team and how other people think about us, how they defend against us. Why is that so important, especially if you're looking to challenge for the elite trophies and the best silverware like the Premier League and the Champions League?
Mate, I don't know if you're watching on your YouTube, on your Twitter feeds. There's Club World Cup going on at the moment, and Real Madrid have had 3 or 4 different systems. I know them all. Man City have had different systems, played more like a 4-2-2. I know them all. What done with their fullback? I'm just a bloke on the beach watching my iPad. I don't know them all. What do you think the analysts are thinking about all the other clubs watching these games properly to analyse what their potential different configurations will be? I think we're going to see a game now which is going to go to a more intellectual level, and it's already there, to be honest. But we're going to be able to maybe be a bit more uncovered to us, and we have to think more about how we view positions versus principles versus variation, creative variation. I think we almost can't be a 4-3-3 team anymore, if you know what I mean, in the old days, sorry. We have to be a team that can show you many different faces in game, and every other game it needs to be able to change. And only when you start to see the different units come together, you say, okay, this team they did this 4 games ago when this group played, and I now need to analyse the game of 4 games ago, not the last 3 games, which is the classic, because they're going to change how they play. And it's up to us to change what we do with the same group, with a different unit. And so I do think it's incredibly important to recognise how the game is changing. So one of the big things about the game, Phil, is we're definitely seeing a defensive strategy, which is quite globalised, compact units, 3 lines, whether you want to press mid 4-2-4 or drop in 4-4-2 or 5-4-1, doesn't really matter. The principles are the same. Reduce the space between the lines, force people into areas where you're comfortable with, and get yourself nice and set, right? So how do you combat that? You combat that by dual winning to create unstructured play, or you create intelligent, soft touch people in between lines that can create in small spaces. And some of the links that we have to small space players is the game that we're facing. And not just us, the football is facing the low block issue, the block issue. You know, whether it's mid or low, doesn't matter. It's a block. It's the most efficient way to defend, to keep your legs, to slow people down. Right? So you need soft touch, real talents to manipulate those groups, ball carriers. And I think if you look at our links, what we link to, Rodrigo, Eze, what are these players? They like to feel a body near them, roll them, quick 1-2s, create shapes, create things that you can't see. We are quite a functional pass team. We pass through, we pass into areas, we pass to people in 1-on-1s, 2-on-1s. We support run, underlap, overlap, clip into the middle, and which is absolutely fine, by the way. We scored the 3rd most goals in Premier League last year. But our creativity number's more like 7th and 8th. So there's room for improvement there. And I'm really glad to see the links that we have right now. And so, because I think it's where the game is going to go, not just for us, but for everybody. So look at Man City's signings, Phil. What are they? All dribblers and carriers, aren't they? People that break teams down, So I think it's really interesting.
I was going to make that point because I think if you're going to be a genuine title challenging or title winning team, you either need to master the system you have, which is what I think Liverpool did under Jurgen Klopp, for example. Everyone knew what team they were going to put out. Everyone knew how they were going to play, but they were just so good at it that you couldn't really do anything. But then I look at Pep, who even in the last 4 or 5 years has evolved his teams massively. They did the 4 centre-backs thing and decided to go with solidity that way. Now they're pushing towards wingers and tricky players in the closer spaces. Then they looked at transition with Raheem Sterling and Sane. So even over the years, you can see how many times they've had to evolve. And I look at Arsenal at the moment, and again, injuries were an obvious factor in this. But you look at how easy we were to stop and to nullify last year, how comfortable people were leaving our left-hand side alone and tripling up on Saka, how comfortable they were pushing us back into the center of the pitch because they knew there was no sort of injection of pace or quality or drive in that area. And I completely agree. We've lacked this sort of profile in the tighter spaces, the ability to bounce a 1-2 off people, someone who can take on a man 1v1, even in transition. I don't think we've been strong enough in transition as well. So it's just about adding layers to our attacking play, because for too long we've been quite simple and easy to figure out. And eventually we would have got there through quality or set pieces, which is often a way we've sort of given ourselves leverage in games. But we need more than that. And especially in Europe, I look at how we've played over the last few years, and it's just finding that extra bit to really push ourselves over the line, because we're not far. We're not far. And even though we've had issues with how we play and how we attack, we still find ways to win games. So it's just about adding some individual quality, some legs in transition, a little bit of flair in the middle as well, just to give us another way of playing.
A little bit of efficiency in the boxes, and if there are games that tell you what you need, right? And I have to be honest with you, the games stick in my mind massively, and they direct where my analysis goes. But the PSG away game is the one for me, because I think you saw everything that we are, with our resources not quite being where they could be, and what we could do and playing to our maximum. And we bossed the best team in Europe and could be crowned the best team in the world. We bossed them. We weren't quite efficient enough with our big chance taken in both legs. And they were incredibly efficient with their chance taking. And they beat us 3-1. When we lost to Bayern the year before, they told us about us tactically, told us where we were strong and weak, stopped us. They beat us by the odd goal, but the gap felt wider. Do you see what I mean? It felt like we'd reached our limit.
Oh, for sure.
And this time, it's like, oh my God, I've got regrets. And what are those regrets? Efficiency, finishing, creativity, consistent ways of playing, not relying on long throws and corners, right? So more ways of creating shot opportunities. It's just there for you. And in your own box, can you be a bit smart around your own box? Can you be a bit more decisive? Can you be a bit more, just a touch more streetwise on the day? Very unfortunate how they took all their chances, all seemed in off the post and really good efforts. You know what I mean? So you got to take it. Their goalkeeper was unbelievable. But the game tells you about you. That's the game for me. If I'm going to make my moves, that's the game I'm going to keep in my mind. And within that game, for that first 25 minutes, we were brilliant. So you don't throw everything away. You just add, and you remind people that's how good we can be. But we weren't quite good enough. So what do you need to do? So that's the game for me, and I'm going to hold on to.
Yeah, let's take a quick break here, because once we get going, I always forget, and then we miss our chance for some wonderfully well-read and important ads. But we'll be back in a second with Eze and Madueke chat, plus maybe a bit on Myles and Ethan in part 2. So see you then. So, Clive, Eberechi Eze, it's been reported by David Ornstein that Arsenal consider him a serious option to bolster their attack, but would be separate to any striker or winger additions, which obviously injected every possible drop of serotonin into my bloodstream. I mean, how exciting is that? We're finally spending big in these areas. And this is a player I've loved and have followed for a long time now, from when he was bossing the championship at QPR. I'm so glad he's managed to fight back and forge himself a career at the highest level after numerous rejections as a young player from so many different clubs. I mean, including being let go by Arsenal, which, according to Eze himself, forced him to break down in tears. So maybe that's a nice redemption arc for him coming full circle. Who knows? I mean, he played another major role for Crystal Palace last season. He was influential in their FA Cup win. I think he scored in the final, the semi-final and the quarter-final. So it shows that he was a big presence, a big player in that win. And there's just something about him that makes you fall in love with him. He's very easy on the eye. He glides across the pitch. He's with real power and elegance. The way he carries the ball, he's got an eye for goal. He's got that bit of flair and control that you like. I mean, this is a player that it's easy to fall in love with, like I said, and he doesn't maybe immediately fit into what our idea of a starting 11 looks like. But in my opinion, that's part of his appeal, in that he can offer or fulfill a number of different attacking roles to a super high level. Where are you on him, his quality, and whether or not Arsenal should be interested in him at the price quoted, which I think is a 68 million release clause, although there has been some reporting that Arsenal might be looking to go a little bit lower than that?
Yeah, I mean, when he's linked, everyone feels good, right? So that tells you sometimes football's very simple, right? It feels good. You know he's friends with some key people in the club, another New Balance athlete like Xhaka, they're mates, and you just know the way they live their lives. They're quite religious guys, a pair of them. They've got similar values. You just think, you know what? He's a London boy. Also, it doesn't take much to fall in love with a story, does it? Right? It will help if he can kick the football, and he can, right? And he can create things. He can move it. He can get past people. The chat was a couple of years ago was, that he wasn't quite as diligent, shall we say, and as Michael Elise, and his ability in the box to finish wasn't that great, So, but it's improved. And now he's really delivering, and he's now getting some love at the England level because he's ending things off. And maybe Michael Elise moving on has put more pressure onto him to be accountable for the last actions. And now people can see those last actions, and suddenly the teams are looking at him. Well, Arsenal are looking at him. So and Spurs, but we won't talk about them, right? So, so basically, I like the idea of it. And so, obviously, he's not an 11 in the Martinelli 11, but he could be the 11 in a Trossard style 11. Do you see what I mean? A creative 11, But also, I think if you look at his heat map, a lot of it is on left-hand side. Right? But it's where he arrives to. He arrives into that centre circle, into that centre spot, penalty spot, and he arrives into zone 14, and he arrives there with timing and decision. I saw him score against Arsenal this year, the bouncing volley, and when it bounced, I was looking down on it, I thought, he's going to score here. He's got a decisive way of finishing around the box. You sort of fear him, and I didn't always feel that. I watched him a couple of seasons before. I thought he's just running at the blind alleys. We can box him off easy, So this has been a really recent development for me to sort of fall for him a little bit. And so I'm going to say this now. I can also hear Scott tapping away on his keyboard saying, yeah, let's see if Clive is right about his finishing numbers 2 years ago and gaining numbers 2 years compared to today. But it feels as though, to me, he's much more decisive in those areas. And so I like the idea of it. Again, I'm not thinking about the system that we used to play. I'm thinking about a system that we could play. Say we have a fast-running centre forward that can sprint into corner flags, and we've got 2 10s behind him and 1 Saka and 1 Eze. Different shape, different view, cradled by fullbacks, different view, right? So I'm trying to open my mind up to different ways of playing. When you have a player like this who can play in multiple ways, you should open your mind up. We spent half of last season looking at Martin Odegaard thinking, mate, you're not quite right. You're not quite right. We know you're trying, but you're not quite right. We know we didn't really have a viable option to change that with the same level of gravitas. Now, I know the way Odegaard plays is more of a right-sided player, but again, we could change something. We could go double pivot with a roaming 10, another way of playing, right? So I do think it's interesting. I think it opens up tactical evolutions to us, Phil, and I like it. I like the story. I just like it. So whether he played wide left, whether he plays as a left 8, whether he plays as a single 10, or whether he plays as a right 8, he can do it all. And when the ball comes into his feet, what you're looking for is the intelligence to combine with our other highly intelligent players. And I think he has that. I think he's on the level. And one thing I think we have missed is I don't think we're intelligent around the edge of the box. Our ability to win high pressures and convert them into shots is not good enough. We have the team to win the duels. When we get to the shooting actions, we're a little bit dumb, and I think he would add a level of intelligence to that. And I think that's one of the big areas where we can improve. I don't mind us being dual-centric, not worried. I don't mind us being high pressured and pushing on and boxing people in and controlling territory. I love it. But what I do want to see when we win it and we have uncontrolled football, broken play, I want to see it lead to a decent shot, and that is to be debated if we're good as that as some of the other aspects to our game. So I think he fixes that, mate. And so, yeah, I like the story. I really do.
I agree with you. I think there has been a lot of development in his game over the last 18 months. And I think you saw it towards the end of last season when Oliver Glasner first came in and him and Elise were really bouncing off Mateta and playing really well. There was a lot more conviction in his game. He was starting to take shots from the edge of the box. I mean, this season alone, I can think of 2 or 3 goals where, there was one against Fulham away at Craven Cottage where he just kind of drifted in from the left and whacked a shot into the corner. There was another really good finish against Chelsea where he bent one into the far corner as well from just that little space outside of the area in the D. So I'm not particularly worried about him not suiting what we view as a traditional left winger in this system, because I think, first of all, he can play there. I think he might not be a true head down runner like a Martinelli, but he's got more than enough in his game to be a kind
more
of
Grealish,
I'm going to stand you up and take you on.
More Grealish, more Grealish.
A little bit more Grealish. Yeah, a bit more Grealish, kind of an upgrade on Trossard in that sense, a bit more twisty, turny, can stand people up. And can he play centrally? Yes. Can he play wide? Yes. Can he even drift over to the right? Yes. I think this is a really exciting sort of potential signing for Arsenal in that he opens doors. he opens doors for us. And you said it earlier, this is just the next part in our tactical evolution and growth and progression, because I think we've been too easy to defend against. It also adds another element to our left-hand side, because maybe they don't say 3 of you can go over there and sit on Saka. Maybe we need 2 people on Eze potentially on the other side, or just watch that space in the left half space. Can you put another player in there, which gives Saka more space to get across into a Havertz or a Sesko, potentially heading in at the back post. So it's about adding more threat, but also layers of threat. And I think Eberechi Eze does that in abundance. Do you have any concerns over price? Is it a little bit too expensive? I mean, we don't know obviously where we could be in terms of our balances. Could we sell somebody? Could we see an unexpected sale, maybe beyond a Martinelli? It does feel a little bit pricey for me, but it doesn't feel pricey to the fact that I would be put off, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it is heavy, and the price was heavy last year as well. No one came in for him last year. And Paris, I did an interview that Steve Parish gave out, that they were surprised that no one came in for him. Well, people are still looking for value, aren't they? I mean, Chelsea are buying everyone under the age of 21 who can walk in a straight line. They'll have him, and so people are smart now. Look at Liverpool spent a lot of money on Wirtz. Was he 21? So the future's ahead. So to spend that level of number on someone who's just turned 27, it does make me wince a little bit. But I tell you what makes me wince a lot more is if we don't win those early games of the season.
Martinelli running into the corner flag.
and Odegaard goes down injured again, and people go wonder why we haven't got the right sort of level of backup for him. And that's the stuff that's really going to make me go wins, because lessons have been tough for us last year. Everything that could go wrong seemed to go wrong, but you got to learn from it, haven't you? You got to learn from it, and so sometimes you might have to just swallow some things. Or we saved maybe 10, 15 million on a Mosquera, for example. So maybe you've got to say stuff, I know what, maybe that 10 million that we just saved there, we need to do a bit. We saved a lot on a backup goalkeeper. Come on, that's 5 million quid for that. That's a lot of savings there. Probably 15 to 20 million on the backup goalkeeper that we were looking at. So you got to say, you know what, to get somebody that's ready-made, that the Arsenal fan base will be buying that shirt, I think sometimes you just got to wear it, So let's hope, well, obviously negotiations, but if there's one to wear, you do this one, So I think it sends a real good message to everybody in the squad. And that's something you've got to think about, Phil, Mosquera is a message to Saliba to say, we're not going to make you play the minutes you played last year. We're going to look after you. Having someone for Saka, we can't keep doing this. It's not, you get it wrong. You saw what happened to Pedri when you overplayed him. You get it wrong, it can really last, and so this is the time to do that now. So I think I'm really hopeful, really hopeful.
I think the initial noises have been that there have been a few exploratory meetings with the player. Obviously, Arteta might have been present there, but nothing from club to club yet. No official offers, so it still probably has a little way to go. But I think the initial reports have been encouraging, and obviously, you're not going to find a better source than David Ornstein. So it does show that we are serious about him. We are really looking to do this deal. Moving on from Eze. Obviously, I couldn't do this podcast without grilling you on Noni Madueke, who it's fair to say you aren't entirely convinced about. And hey, I'm with you, because I was supposed to interview him a few years back when he was at PSV, only for him and his dad to move the goalpost last minute. So he's been in my bad books since then. But he is a Barnet boy like me, so I'll give him some leeway. Yeah. But this is another link that's gathering momentum, and it's been reported that Arteta likes the player. Although, again, nothing serious has been presented to him in terms of personal terms. There's been no official offer to Chelsea. But it's been bubbling away. There have been a few sources, some not so good, some good, talking about this. And overall, I would say it's generally been met with a level of frustration, because not only are people unconvinced by the player, who has been inconsistent and a little bit temperamental at the best of times, but the optics of taking another player deemed surplus to requirements from Chelsea is just a bit old and exhausting. I mean, I'm sick of giving them money for guys they don't want or value, and our record of buying from them or even loaning from them has been bad, to say the least. Do you want to double down on your Friday night Clive segment, or has time healed some wounds? Are you viewing this player differently from when you did a few days ago with a bit of time to look at things?
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna. I can't double down in the same way because it's a bit early in the day for that. But
We
what
need a PG rating, yeah.
exactly. But much like Eze, it's a feel. Whether we get him or not, it feels good, doesn't it? It feels good. Why does it feel good? Because of who he is, how he plays, how he gives off that he would be happy to play for us, right? When he plays, he's like a joy to watch. You can see the joy coming out of him to express himself. I want some of that into our team, right? We sit there, we support our team, we pay our money because we want to see things that we can't do, and we want to like the players that are in front of us. When I see Noni Madueke, he's a player at PSV. Phil, he came out of Spurs as a kid, jumped over to Holland, and I thought, I'm going to keep my eye on him. I left him from the right that can move. I thought, he's not bad. Just watching him on clips. Then I get to see him play for Chelsea. You get to see him more closer up. You get to see what he does off the ball. You get to see his body language. You get to see all the arguing over penalties and free kicks. And I'm thinking, that's not us. That isn't us. We've got a manager that's absolutely super focused on body language and team play and being there for your teammates. I can't see it. I couldn't see it. But it's real. It's real. He has come up on the data. It's real, and so we're going to look at it, right? The numbers in the mid-40s. It's a real live option. I'm thinking, flipping hell, that's not for me. It can change in a WhatsApp, and it can change in a tweet, right? So, but it's not real. It's not where I want to be. But it shows the challenges of having the support for a Saka, for example. It's not an easy buy, right? So, and I want that support for Saka more than I dislike this player. Do you see what I mean? So, because I think that's important, because I very much like Saka, and I think he could be anything for us, right? It's statue material, right? If we get things right. So protecting him is my number one. Is protecting him with someone that not too fond of. Who cares what I think, right? So I care about that player reaching his potential, which he won't do if we keep running him out as we're doing right now, right? So I'm not a fan, and I'm hoping what I see versus what I know about our manager and his principles, that it's not going to end up with something. There was another link, Phil. I mentioned his name to you, and I've already forgotten it. A young lad a French lad out of Monaco. What's his name? The left winger.
Yeah.
Akliouche, thank you, mate. Now that is someone I got my eyes on. Right, that is somebody that we should be looking at. His agent, I believe, is Gyokeres, his agent, and so there's a link there. And that, if you look at that player, I think, that's got potential. The number is high. It is high. But maybe that could be linked to, things potentially that are happening with other players in our squad. What happens to Odegaard? Sorry, what happens to Trossard? What happens to Martinelli? You don't know what can happen and what a space could be created. And it's the sporting director's job to create options. If opportunities present themselves, have you got the options to take? Much like what we've done with Norgaard, So I like that player. I think he can. I think he's got the strike. He's got the moves. He's got the ability. He's highly talented. His name was mentioned to me at a time when I didn't ask it for it to be mentioned. So I started to look at him. I thought, that's interesting. And then suddenly this link appeared. I thought, the kid at is playing in Belgium, the Greek lad. Is it Gyokeres?
Gyokeres, yeah.
Gyokeres, thank you, Phil. Your accent's so much better than mine. I'm butchering these names. Again, what is he? Another lefty from the right. And you're thinking, okay, what's happening here? And it comes back to the point. I'm going to jump into it right now. What's happening here? We got a number of lefties from the right being linked to us. And people are saying, well, we got Odegaard, we got Saka, we got Ethan. Well, one of those players hasn't signed his contract yet. And in Ethan Nwaneri. So, what's happening there? Does he need to go on loan? Does he, what's the situation there? At this moment in time, Arsenal have got to cover themselves for any eventuality, right? So I'm watching Ethan, he's in our hearts along with Myles. You have to say to yourself, okay, where is he in his development? What does he need to develop? And it becomes a football development question. So watching him in the Euros and watching him last year when he played inside and when he played outside, what's the difference? I'll tell you what he does feel, and I've been looking at him closely. It's what I used to say to my son. He stares at the ball. So when we're out of position, he stares at it. Because at youth level, he can stare at the ball and they're going to give him the ball because he's the best player on the pitch. And he gets the ball to his feet and he goes, boom, 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 top corner. Thank you very much. Right. At senior level, you got to stare at the space. You got to stand between the tulips, mate, exactly in the right space to receive the ball. Right. So hence why sometimes he's better on the right-hand side, because in the interior, he hasn't quite worked out that ability yet to receive it in the right way and have in the right spaces. So he's becoming a little bit staring at the ball, which is restricting his time to dictate the game. And he's only young. No one dictates the game at 18, right? So no one does. You need time to do that. You need to find your time to do that. You need to be in a team that allows you to do that, much like Odegaard did when he was in Holland. He was at Vitesse, was he as a young lad? And
at Vitesse, and Herenveen as well.
Thank you. That's the other one I couldn't remember. I knew you would. and he was allowed to develop, and he went to Sociedad. He was allowed to develop that alpha mentality to say, I'm running things here. So Ethan might need something like that. He might do. And it's going to be tough to accept, but he might need that somewhere else. To develop his touches on the ball, his ability to receive and run football matches. And so I'm trying to link why all these lefties being linked, so we don't need them. And let's see what happens, right? Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of Madueke, I might be in a small camp here, but I think he's a really good player that's just kind of ready to go bang. But I don't see it happening for all of the reasons that you mentioned. I don't see him as an Arsenal player. I don't think he's got the mentality or the attitude to be an Arsenal player. I think he can be quite individualistic at times, and that doesn't suit our manager or our ethos as a group. But in terms of the talent, he's someone who really excites me. And I think Chelsea have kind of made a rod for their own back here because they just keep buying and buying and buying, and they'll continue this cycle. Now it's Esteval coming in, then it will be Kendry Payet, and then there's just so many people that they need to move and manage, and the money's there. But if I think he should be on the list at Spurs. He should be on the list at Newcastle. Maybe Newcastle for Arsenal, I don't see an
that's a really good shout.
They both missed out on Mbeumo, right? Spurs and Newcastle. So why shouldn't they be after Madueke? But in terms of the talent and the talent alone, I really think there's a player there, but he just doesn't fit my eye in terms of what we need at Arsenal, nor would he be comfortable coming into to challenge or even be back up to Saka. So Akliouche definitely fits that bracket because he wouldn't be coming in as an immediate Premier League star. I'm listening to what you're hearing on Ethan. Maybe there's something there to consider as well. Obviously, moving on to another academy graduate. Let's talk Myles Lewis-Skelly, who extended his contract with the club. He's committed his future to Arsenal, and I'm really happy about this. I mean, I wasn't ever worried about him leaving, but you can't take anything for granted in football these days. And although it's quite clear he is valued and considered an important part of not only our future, but our present as well, after coming in and playing so well last season, this is a big sort of statement for the club because we're keeping one of the best young players around. We're giving him a sizable contract. So it shows that, again, we're really valuing him and what he brings to our team, the stature that he holds in the squad. It's been a bit lost within the transfer news and business that we've needed to do, but there have been some big renewals on the list as well to sort out this summer. Myles has followed Gabriel now as the second player to put pen to paper. Tell me why this is important for the club, both on a tangible playing perspective, but also for what it means about how we value Hale End and handing opportunities to young players.
Yeah, this is massive. I think I'm very much interested in watching young players develop and try to understand development. I didn't always used to understand it. I remember one time I call it the Nathan Teller test, right? So I was watching a youth game many years ago, and a scout came up to me and goes, "Oh, look at that player there." I'm watching the game, Phil. I couldn't see. I thought he was all right. And it's like 12, 13 at the time, and I'm thinking, well, he's all right. He said, "You don't find many of those players around." He's at Arsenal. I thought, oh, crikey. I should know him. And it was Nathan Teller, and I couldn't see him. couldn't see what he was doing, couldn't see his development. And I watched his career, and I think he's at Leverkusen now. He's had a great career, right? And played for Burnley for a while, and great career. And he made it to top level. Fair play to him. I couldn't see where that was going, and everyone could, right? So with Myles, people have known about him for a while, and it's quietly under the radar. Could have been near that first team even before he actually got there, and I think he's just landed in this space in such a good way. He's not just playing for Arsenal. He's become an important figure. You look at our club, and he's representative of the club. He's 18 years of age. He's playing for England and looking like he's just done it forever, right? So, what do we have here? This is not just a player developing. This is a brand developing right in front of you. He's walking the Paris catwalks. This kid is special. He's absorbing the world around him. I just saw a little clip online today from his mum runs a thing called Number One Fan Club, and he's got a picture of him in the stadium on his contract day, and all the people that support him and have supported him are around him. And I thought it's just a beautiful picture. And it goes to show you, the phrase said, it takes a village. And it does take a lot of people to get to this level. And he respects that in everything that he does, the way he lives, the way he plays, the way he behaves. It's just an absolutely fantastic role model. And a year ago, I was packing my case to go to LA, and I watched him scuffling up and down that left-hand side. I thought, yeah, he's all right. And a year later, we got this. You just never can tell. You can tell. I couldn't see this. Much back to my Nathan Teller test, I couldn't see it. And people talk with such certainty about young players. Every pathway is different. Ethan's pathway may need to be different. You may need a pause. And so it's so interesting to see how each player develops on from that. So for Myles, he surprised me massively. And I think I knew it. I thought I knew him. But he's gone again. He's gone past my expectations. And I think he could surprise us again this season. He is for real. His ambition is super high. He is for real. And it's going to be really apparent to everybody really, really quickly.
This is a really interesting case for me, because I think him and Ethan are linked sort of intrinsically. When they met each other at 8 years old, they came up through the academy together. People knew about Myles, but Ethan was the one, right? Ethan was the one scoring all the goals, banging in shots from the edge of the box. And Myles was just there slowly developing in the background. I actually watched him for England at the Under-17 World Cup. And I think the conditions were terrible. It was in in Indonesia or something, but he was gassed. He was not getting around the pitch. He was losing people in transition, losing people on the edge of the box. And this was an England team that underperformed quite heavily in that tournament. They lost to Uzbekistan in the end. So imagine that kind of upset or exit.
That wouldn't happen now.
And he's just, and look at him now. He's boshing people off. He's crashing into Pap Sarr in North London derbies. He's handling Rodrigo in the Bernabeu. He's doing all of these amazing things. And I just think every challenge, everything that's been asked of him, left back, inverting into midfield, winning battles, he's just taken it with such an ease and a confidence. And his personality, his body looks so prepared and ready for the highest level to compete with wingers who are 100-meter sprinters. I just think we've got an absolute gem on our hands. And I really loved the announcement video, actually, when he was walking around with his grandma, showing, his shirt in the dressing room, going past all the pictures. There was even some behind the scenes stuff of him doing training as well on his own YouTube channel. And I just think we are really lucky to have him and witnessing something so special here. So like you said, it's not just a player developing here. This is a man and a brand in front of our very own eyes. So yeah, something to keep an eye on with him. I think he's got a huge future at this club, and obviously this contract shows how we value him. That's kind of all that I had on the list.
Can I hold you on Myles a little bit longer? Because there's a couple of interesting things that came out. And this is something that, I remember when I was younger, when I was his age, and I was just getting into work in the city, and I didn't have that personality. I was just a little flower in the background. He's got the personality to be himself at the club at 18. And that is a hat tip to all the people at Hale End that have allowed him to be himself, developed him on the emotional side of things. And then when he went in for his contract discussions earlier this year, he presented to the club rather than the club present to him. He's got the maturity to present to the club what they've done for him, positioning him as left back, which allowed him to get to this level. Now, some people are trying to move him already. I'm not one of those people. He'll be playing in the World Cup at left back. Why are we trying to move him into midfield? Right, so he's already there anyway. So why are we trying to move him?
He plays in midfield anyway.
Exactly. And then he does the other job as well. So it doesn't make sense. But he recognised that that's allowed Arteta moving him and making that decision. He was part of that decision when he was playing for youth teams. They moved him. I watched some of those games. I'm thinking, what are you doing? He should be in midfield. And look where it's led to. So there are some smart people that worked him out, worked out what we're trying to do. Because we've got stability at the first team coaching levels. We knew our philosophy, our play style, our principles, and we knew he would suit it. And the best route in potentially was as a left back playing inside. And he's now managed that. And he appreciated the fact that that change has changed his life. And he told the club about it. And I just think it's just wonderful. I really do. I just can't speak highly enough. I can't speak highly enough of what he's doing, how he's developing, and hopefully where he's heading. If we can keep him steady and focus on the thing that's really important, which is the grass and that ball, then we got something special. Really do.
Yeah, I spoke to the CEO of Analytics FC, actually, who were the company who helped him do that presentation. Yeah. Alex Stewart, really nice guy. And they'd helped Ben White in the past as well. Yeah. And they were just so impressed with Myles and how sort of clear his professional ambitions were, how driven he was, how mature he was. And like you said earlier, this is not just a testament to him, but the people around him, not just at Hale End and his coaches, but his friends, his family, his mum, obviously, who plays a huge role in what he does every day. So yeah, we're just so lucky to have him representing the club. And it's very rare. This is so rare to see people coming into the team like this with that kind of impact. And I think it got lost a little bit last season because we were just so exhausted having to fight. We were fighting every week, injuries, red cards, suspensions, bad refereeing decisions. So to really sit back and appreciate it now and realize, holy crap, this guy has done what nobody else does at 18 years of age is truly incredible. So
yeah,
just to touch on a final subject, Gyokeres, Sesko, who knows what the hell's going on there? There's been disagreements between Gyokeres and Sporting. There's talk that he's got a 60 million euro release clause active at the moment. Then there are other reports saying that Sesko wants a release clause. Then there are other reports saying that RB Leipzig are standing firm on their 85, 90 million euro valuation. And those talks have slowed down and Arsenal are looking to kind of put their eggs in another basket. Every day there's something else. Could we even go for someone who's not even been mentioned yet? I mean, it's a possibility. Ollie Watkins has been spoken about. Where are you on this, Clive? Because I think there's so much happening that no one else really knows what's going on apart from what Berta and Arteta are talking about. Do you think we're set on an option and are just kind of playing the game, playing a bit of chicken to see if we can get Sesko out of RB Leipzig at a reasonable price? Or is there a genuine reality that we move away from him if RB Leipzig won't budge?
That could easily happen, Phil. I think that the agent's quite difficult. The club is quite difficult. It can happen. You've got to make your plans. And, I felt that Sesko should have come last year. The number was about 42. He should have come. I didn't care if he wasn't ready. His potential's obvious to everybody, and I felt that he'd be almost like a souped-up Havertz. And I just watched Havertz have the best 6 months ever. And I'm thinking, I want a bit more of that, but we can't expect him to do it all the time. So I want more of that, please. And but we didn't go for him, and we lost Havertz. We all know what happened in 2025, right? So, but I started to think again. I'm having my daiquiris on holiday and my Mai Tais. I started to think again. I thought, actually, Clive, think this through. Think this through a little bit. Havertz is souping himself up. Do we want a souped up Havertz? Or do we want something different? Somebody that offers a laser focus around the box and just a pure Alan Shearer shooter. A hustle bustle shooter that is different. So I'm trying to think, that does sort of make a bit of sense, right? So I'm sure people are having the same sort of thoughts and debates in their own mind. I've always been on the Sesko thing, but I think actually, is it the right thing? The most important thing for me is that the centre forward is a true centre forward and he sprints away. Because the links to a Rodrigo and an Eze and all these players, to have a sprinting forward that sprints away, that creates space for them to play in, is very important. Havertz is a really good all-round centre forward, and he suits Arteta's model better than anybody else. But he's not going to make 5 or to 10 sprints into the corners, or to take. He's going to want to feel the ball, touch the ball, because he's really a 10 and a half. Do you know what I mean? That's what he really is, sort of thing. And so to have that different player to sprint away, I was cool with either of them. But I'm starting to wonder if there's a bit more diversity between Gyokeres and Havertz. By getting Sesko and Havertz, would that create... I'm not saying they're the same, because people, before you say something, but Havertz is getting stronger, more powerful. Do I want something slightly different? So I think it's a good debate, right? So I'm still team Sesko if you need to put me in a team. But the most important thing is they're true runners and they threaten that back line, and they both do that. So I'm comfortable either way we go. But I can now understand Gyokeres links maybe a bit more than I did before the daiquiris hit.
These positions, these players were always going to take a lot longer in my mind, purely because of the finances involved. There's so much to consider in terms of dominoes that need to fall in other aspects, in terms of our squad, potentially other squads. RB Leipzig don't have Europe this year, so they could lose a lot more than just Sesko. That could be Lois Openda, that could be Xavi Simons. There's the whole stuff with Sporting going on in the background. So this was never going to be a quick fix, and I would have loved for a striker to be in before pre-season. I still do, still would. But there is a natural acceptance in me that if we are going to go for a Rodrigo, if we are going to go for a Sesko or a Gyokeres, that we might just have to wait a little bit. And I think there's going to be so many more twists and turns, just the sheer volume of how these deals are being reported, where the sources are coming from. It's almost different every day compared to Portugal, England, and Germany. We hear something different every day. So either way, I'm sure the club realistically know who they want, but whether they might have to pivot last minute, whether there could be another deal that comes up, I don't know. Either way, I'm with you. I'm still leaning towards Sesko purely because of what he offers us and what he could be.
Yeah.
But I've always liked Gyokeres, and I think if we are looking for someone to come in now and be a killer in the penalty box, I think it's him all day. So let's see. There's going to be so much more coming out, and I've been a bit tired of it already, to be honest, because it's just been non-stop reporting, and I know that's how the world works at the moment, because people need it. They need that kind of that thirst for updates every hour, every day. But I still think the club know who they want, and who that is, I don't know.
First world problems, mate. First world problems. They're both really
first
good
world
players.
problems. Let's get these four players out of the way first, and then we can move on to the striker. So yeah, I think that's probably a good place to wrap it up now. I would expect Norgaard to be done soon. Obviously, Zubamendi is going to be done very soon as well. Kepa's already been announced. Mosquera looks like it's heading that way. So really exciting times for Arsenal. They had a bit of a slow start in the window, but things have just exploded now. I think people are coming back from holidays. They know who they want to speak to. I'm sure the news cycle will have spun 100 times before next main pod on Monday. So yeah, that's kind of where we're going to leave it. This is the part of the podcast where I'd usually point you towards some stuff happening in the near future, but I've got no idea what Elliot's got planned over the next few days. So instead, I'll redirect you to some content that has been released in the past week that you might have missed. If you want the lowdown on Christian Norgaard from an actual Brentford fan, his strengths, weaknesses. Elliot spoke to Mike from the Ealing Road podcast about his thoughts on the player and potential move to Arsenal, which was really good and informative. One Club was back this week with Tim and Clive talking all things squad building and keeping things fresh for the Arsenal women. There was even a history pod, aren't you lucky, where Tim was joined by Arsenal historian Andy Kelly to talk about the election to expand the First Division in 1919, which saw Arsenal promoted and Tottenham demoted in controversial circumstances. So there's plenty for you to get stuck into should you need an accompaniment to a morning commute, a dog walk, the gym, anything else. Other than that, Clive, thanks for joining, mate. It was always a pleasure talking to you, and hopefully next time we sit down, we'll have some more players to talk about.
Thank you very much.
My name is Phil Costa, and thanks for putting up with me for this episode. As I said, we did think about cancelling today's show, but decided to move forward with respect. And just to echo what was said earlier, our thoughts go out to the family, friends, and loved ones of Diogo Jota and his brother Andre Silva, who have both left us far too soon. So thanks so much for being here, and we'll talk to you after Arsenal 10, transfer window nil.